We'll now move on to session number 3, and it is titled Assessing Programming Knowledge and Skills Through an Online Oral Exam by Norman Lee, Senior Lecturer, Information Systems Technology and Design. So Dr. Norman Lee currently teaches programming at SUTD, in particular Python and Android programming using Java. Norman is involved in several educational research projects using AI and data analytics. He is also an AHE Fellow. He will be describing how we replaced our regular on-campus programming exam in May 2020 with an oral exam administered online that followed an assignment. Without any more delay, the time is yours, Norman. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my slide and can you see my slides there? Yes, okay, great. So yeah, it's really my pleasure to come and share with all of you at this Pedagogy Day how we assess our programming knowledge and skills through an online exam, online oral exam, and that happened during the COVID period, which I think Apple has already shared with you what was the approach for physical world. So now essentially I'm sharing the approach for digital world. Okay, so why should you stay on and listen to my talk? So what happened was we had to cancel our programming exams due to the circuit breaker. So what we did was we assessed students using an assignment and an oral exam administered online. So what I'm going to share with you, actually it's details of this assessment format and our lessons learned. Okay. So a bit of a background for our course. In spring of 2020, that was the last run of the digital world. It essentially covered Python programming, but that also, we also showed them applications of Python programming to the Raspberry Pi, to controlling a robot, and as well as Internet of Things using Google Firebase. So some of you might be aware that we've revamped our curriculum. So this course has been replaced by courses in term 1 and term 3. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, next. So I'm going on to our next slide. So as a matter of contrast, so this is our pre-COVID learning environment. As you can see, students are very interactive. They're all sitting around in teams. They're all having discussion, and you can see the hardware that's happening all around in the co-op classroom, and you can see the discussions happening at the whiteboard. So the pandemic actually essentially ended all that. So when the circuit breaker began on the 7th of April, our lessons ran online using Microsoft Teams. All our classroom activities or course project involving hardware had to be cancelled, unfortunately. And we had to find an alternative to the final exams. We actually considered online proctored exams using Responded Monitor, but when we ran mock test, we found that several students had difficulties with the webcam because such online proctored exams require webcams, and also that the many students really were not did not take too kindly to the supposed invasion in privacy, and they were also not familiar with the systems that were in use. So we actually abandoned the attempt to have an online proctored exam. Yeah. Okay, so then as a matter of context in the literature, so what are the other alternatives in such a situation? So in several other higher education institutions, there are such things as 24-hour exams, or exams lasting a certain period, and you've heard Apple describe how her course had something that lasted 3 hours. There was also performance-based exams. There's also oral exams, and of course, in many of the education technology advice that we read, actually it turned out that online proctored exams are discouraged due to issues in preventing the integrity of the exams. So for example, if you read that website, it explains explains your alternatives and explains why online proctored exams should be your last resort. And in oral exams, in fact, actually has been applied in many contexts. And for example, we have oral exams being administered in distance learning situations, first year courses, postgraduate finance courses, and so on. So actually it came as a surprise to us that actually oral exams have been used in many contexts. Many studies reported that understanding was easy to assess, and actually students also enjoyed the process better than a sit-down exam. And there are also studies that that looked into cheating, and studies that one of the studies reported that actually oral exam is the hardest to cheat on. And in computing education research, we've seen examples of people using open-ended game assignments and also using oral exams to test programming concepts. So actually, of course, we came up with a solution first, and then we read the literature. So it turned out that our solution actually has precedence in literature. So that was really pleasant to discover. So what was our solution? Our solution was take home open-ended game programming assignment. And if you just set it as a open-ended game assignment and left it as that, then there is the possibility of cheating, because there's no way to prevent students from seeking external help. For example, in worst case, paying someone else to do the assignment for them. So my course lead, Oka, decided that the primary means of assessment will be an oral exam that it's administered online. Okay, and the oral exam questions will be based on the code of the game that was submitted. So why is a game a good topic for online for such a situation? That's because essentially it is a very hard task. It requires synthesis of several programming concepts, and even a simple game requires concepts from several concepts put together. It's also an authentic assessment, because once you are a programmer, then your job is essentially to design and implement software. So a game is essentially one kind of a software. And of course, a game is also seems to be motivating for students, simply because I think in the pop culture today, game plays a large part of their lives for many of them. Yep. Okay, so we saw that in the feedback that students really enjoyed the assignment. So how do we communicate with the students? So same as Apple, we actually had we released a project brief, and if there were any questions or clarifications, was this directed to the Piazza Forum. Same thing, there were lots of questions that are related to anxiety, how do we ensure integrity, and so on. And we, due to the timeline given to submit the grades, we essentially only had 1 day to administer an oral exam, and given the number of students, and given the time available, essentially we could only schedule an oral exam at 5 minutes per student. So the entire teaching team of 8 faculty were involved in administering this oral exam, and yet with the entire team, we could only give each student at about 5 minutes. So what happened was, how did we administer the exam? So essentially, we set a deadline that was 1 week before the oral exam. So we assigned one instructor to a class of 50 students, and the instructor did not teach that cohort. That's to eliminate bias. And what the instructor did after the deadline was, over, was to prepare the questions in advance and custom make them for each student. And so many of us found ourselves writing very higher order thinking questions, right? So what will happen? Things like, what would happen if this was changed, and that sort of thing. So we found ourselves asking very little factual questions, yeah, or lower order thinking questions. So what was the feedback from instructors? So it was actually the same as reported in the literature, is that through the by reading the code, instructors already had a sense of the students' ability, and when we asked questions to the students, it further confirmed this sense. And one notable thing was, I think the preparation time was actually the same because essentially it's a trade-off. We trade off the marking, setting, and so on for the question, for the time in preparing the questions and reading the code and administering the oral exam. Yeah. What was the feedback from the students? They enjoyed the assignment, and of course this remark came from the course feedback, but you also have students giving positive remarks on the final exam through other means, like I think through one of the SUTV's blogs. And in another separate survey that we did, many students remarked that the oral exam time was too short. That we agree, because I think some of us actually found that we overran the schedule and had to spend a bit more time with some students. Yeah, and for external visitors, in fact, for everyone listening in, if you wish to see what kind of games the students produce, you may just visit this website, which is our showcase. So we, on top of getting them to write the code and attending oral exam, we actually got each one of them to submit a video, so that and the video was essentially to help the instructors understand their game, but actually it came with an additional purpose of also showcasing it. And of course, we obtain students' permission before we upload the videos here on this website. So what are our lessons learned with this COVID situation? So I think what happens is that I think many of us have lived through at least several pandemics. For example, first one that came to our mind was the SARS pandemic, and now this. So I think that we need to have a plan for disruptions to teaching and learning, and so we could. And now the good thing is that we do have options, and we actually also arrive at the same conclusion as the previous talk, is that all these authentic performance-based assessments will probably play a larger role in our assessments. And of course, this is something that we have to continually look at to devise assessments that are meaningful and can be can be deployed even in the case of a limited amount of resources. Yeah. Okay, and with that, I thank you, and yeah, I thank you for your attention, and happy to answer any questions. And one last thing, so maybe just let me acknowledge my co-authors. So actually, Oka is the course lead, and Kenny and I I'm the one giving the presentation. Also, Kenny also really helped a lot in giving ideas on how to administer the thing. So, for example, he was the person who suggested using MS Teams, and he also actually helped to do the website. Okay, so that's it. Yeah. Any questions?
Hi, thank you, Norman.
Yeah.
I think Sergey has a question. Sergey, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I just wanted to know, so each student was assigned to write a unique game, like all of them had their own different games to write, or it was like a common assignment?
Yes. So so each student was told, okay, come up with a game by yourself, essentially. So decide your own game. Yeah, and yeah, so that was the assignment. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sergey. Any other questions? Well, if you have any other questions and that you want to put down, you can go to the OneNote and write that down. We are going to have a 10-minute break. Oh, 5-minute break, sorry, we're running slightly behind. So we'll see you back at 3:50 for the next session. Thank you, everyone.